with that, we can go ahead and move on to the Bengals offensive side of the ball. Bengals offense versus Rams defense. How do y'all see this playing out?
Thompson, you want to go first?
Yeah, so I think this is a pretty interesting matchup. I think the one I'm looking forward to most is definitely Jamar Chase versus Jalen Ramsey. So we've seen Jamar Chase burst onto the scene this year. In my opinion, one of the top receivers in the league already, which is pretty crazy. And Jalen Ramsey, obviously one of the top shutdown corners in the league. So this is the matchup that I'm watching closest. I also am really interested to see how the elite Rams defensive line with Aaron Donald fares against such a poor offensive line of the Bengals. Tennessee's defensive line is by no means elite, and having how many sacks? 7 sacks. Titans had 7 sacks against Joe Burrow. It's just crazy and just not something that can happen against a stronger Rams side. So those are the two matchups that I'm kind of looking at this Super Bowl.
For me, this game all starts up front. Thompson, you talked about the Bengals defensive line. I mean, you alluded to it as well, being able to disrupt Matthew Stafford. Well, guess what? The same applies for the Rams defensive line and these pass rushers, Leonard Floyd and Von Miller, to not only get pressure on Joe Burrow, but to actually finish and tackle when they do get pressure. Because we've seen that Joe Burrow, Emmy and I have talked about this a lot on previous podcasts, his ability to extend plays and escape pressure, his presence, when guys are around his feet, his ability to make throws under pressure. He's got the highest passer rating this season of any quarterback when under pressure. That ability sort of masks a lot of the issues that the Bengals have on this offensive line. So I think it's not as big of an issue, but as you said, Aaron Donald against that interior of the Bengals offensive line. If you have to double team him or even triple team him, depending on how effective he is early in the game, that could be trouble, because then Leonard Floyd and Von Miller are going to have those one-on-one matchups on the outside, and that could be trouble as well. So I do think, and give them credit, the Bengals offensive line bounced back last week. They played I'd say a very good game for what they are against the Chiefs, only allowing 1 sack. Burrow was under pressure at times, but he was able to make some plays. If they can do that and not allow Burrow to get, absolutely killed like he was in the Titans game, under that constant pressure, I think the Bengals will be able to move the ball offensively. I do think they need to stick to the formula of keeping Joe Mixon involved in the offense. Don't abandon the running game, even if it's not effective early. And I think you've seen that Joe Burrow is completely comfortable throwing to his other guys if Jamar Chase is not open. Last 2 weeks ago in the AFC Championship, we saw T. Higgins have a great game. I do think Uzama, this is a pleasant surprise. I think the tight end, he's going to play. That's what it sounds like to me. So that's a big boost for them as well. And then obviously you have the other receiver, Tyler Boyd. So they have plenty of weapons to get this done, but it all starts up front. Having a good enough game, especially on the interior of the offensive line, to contain Aaron Donald, stick with the running game, even if it's not effective early. And then I trust these receivers to win their one-on-one matchups. So there it is.
I think that's a really interesting point you brought up about Cincinnati's interior needing to only have a good enough game. I feel like obviously Cincinnati's interiors by no means is elite. I would say average at best, but having a good enough game, I feel like their other offensive talent can kind of make up for the lack of an offensive line, which is something that I don't feel like the Rams have the other way around.
That's exactly what they've been doing this entire postseason. And I'll let Emmy speak in a minute, but I think, just Joe Burrow's ability to escape pressure and in plays, it's going to be put on display again. And you can kind of, for the tone of Thompson and I's analysis, you can kind of see where we're going to go with our prediction. But I just think watch the offensive line, especially the interior against Aaron Donald, but not only Aaron Donald, Greg Gaines as well, who's kind of feeds off Aaron Donald on that interior of the offensive line or defensive line, excuse me. And then these tackles, they've been pretty good as of late, but Von Miller and Leonard Floyd are a little bit of different beasts when it comes to pass rush. But I still think sticking to Joe Mixon, not only in the run game, but in the passing game is key. What do you think, Emmy?
Well, I think this side of the ball is complex yet simple at the same time. It's, as you said, Aaron Donald and that defensive line is going to play a big role. But if I'm Joe Burrow, I'm just telling my O-line, like, guys, give me 3 seconds. That's all I need. Because the one thing that the Bengals have done all year is they love that 9 route down the outside with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And Joe Burrow has such good chemistry with these receivers that they can go back shoulder when they need to. They can double move when they need to. They can audible to wherever they want, and they'll just be able to connect on it every single time. So those 50-50 balls on the outside are more like 75-25 when it's those Bengals guys out there. So if I'm the Bengals, I'm like, I just need to be able to give them a chance, because those dudes on the outside, those studs on the outside, those are the dudes that helped get you here. And that's how you won games throughout the playoffs. Another thing is, if I'm the Rams, is I want to keep this as a low scoring game, a slugfest, if you will, because I think that style of game would play to your favor if you're the Rams. You don't want Joe Burrow to get into a rhythm early and get the big plays. We've seen it over and over again. A slant route to Jamar Chase, he takes it to the house, 75 yards. Anything like that, the go routes, you can't let that happen. And one of the big things to look at will be if these safeties bite in the run game a little bit, if they get it going early. That's why I really liked what you said, Michael, about having that running game early. Is if you can make that successful, then those safeties have to come down a little closer in their run fits in that cover 4 scheme. And then, boom, everything else is opened up.
Exactly. Another thing that I wanted to point out that I forgot to point out earlier, the Rams, they were a pretty heavy blitz team the entire regular season, right? They were 9th in percentage blitz on 3rd downs. And that's where I really think this Bengals offensive line needs to be good, is on 3rd downs when they have those 3rd and longer situations, because trust me, they are going to come. This Rams defensive line, this defensive front is going to create pressure at some point and make them convert those 3rd and longer situations. And they're going to pin their ears back on 3rd down. And Raheem Morris, so far this postseason, he's loved to send blitz, send pressure on 3rd down. 51%, actually 52% if you round it up, of 3rd downs this postseason, the Rams have blitzed in their 3 postseason games. So if you're the Bengals, if you're this offensive line, you need to be on your game and be able to pick up these blitzes, however you have to do it, whether it's keeping a tight end into block, keeping Mixon or Pirine into chip. I mean, however you have to do it, you got good at picking up these blitzes that the Rams like to send on 3rd down. And it shouldn't be all that tough, given that it's on tape. We've seen it the past couple of weeks. They do it a lot. So that's just another thing. I think 3rd downs, red zone, and turnovers, those are always keys to any football game, but especially in this game in particular, with 2 first-time quarterbacks on this stage and this offensive line of the Bengals and all these factors, all these young players. And again, the turnover battle goes both ways. It's not only Matthew Stafford, although that's where the eyes are going to be looking at, right? It's also the Bengals. They got to be careful as well. In games, they turn the ball over 2 or more times. At the beginning of last year, they are 0-14. So you got to be very careful about that as well. So I think, especially on third downs, that's where this Bengals offensive line, like you said, Emmy, just give me 3-4 seconds if you can. I mean, if it doesn't happen, I can extend plays, but you should be telling me 3 or 4 seconds. I got this. I know where to go with the football. That's what I like. These receivers for the Bengals are just too good. I think someone will find a way to get open. Burrow will find a way to make a play if you can just not let him get destroyed.